Welcome back to another episode of Contractor Secrets with Trade Business Accountants. My name is Bayley Peachey, and today we have a guest I'm very excited to be speaking with, and that is James Riddle, Director and CEO of Plumbing Bros. Plumbing Bros is a multi-award-winning company originally founded in Perth back in 2017, which has since grown and expanded into a team of over 100 people, servicing 3 different industries and operating across 4 different states. James, welcome to the show. How are you doing this morning?
Good, buddy. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. Really glad to have you joining me on the podcast. What we'll do is we'll kick things off with a bit of background about yourself. So, what's your story? How'd you get into the trades and what led you to starting Plumbing Bros?
So I'll probably start my story when I was 16 and I got kicked out of school. Well, I got asked to leave. My mum wasn't too happy with that one, but I remember it perfectly like it was yesterday, which is strange because I don't even remember yesterday, but we were, it was a hot November or December day in Melbourne, and there was a group of guys going to the swimming pool, but I also had an opportunity to meet with a careers lady from the school who had teed up an interview for me with the owner of a plumbing business. And I was so close to going to the swimming pool, it wasn't funny, but how different my life could have been. I ended up completing a 4-year apprenticeship with the one employer who was the guy I met with that afternoon. And then from there, I saw an opportunity to manage a plumbing division of an electrical company. So I took that. It's probably a little bit premature, but I took that.
What age were you at this point in time?
By that age, I was 20 years old when I got that opportunity.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. A little bit premature, and as my story continues on, you'll see I've got a history of that. And then in I think it was 2010, I was approximately 22 when I was given another opportunity. Once again, pretty premature, but it was to start my own plumbing, electrical, heating, and air conditioning business. And I reflect on it now as a jack of all trades, master of none. The problem is it's just so easy to start a new business without any training or experience.
Absolutely.
You know all about that, in your profession, but I had a passion. And the passion got me so far. By 2013, I had several large contracts, had a decent sized team. And then I learned some really harsh lessons. And by 2014, I lost everything.
Really?
Yeah. I remember opening a $187,000 tax debt and I didn't have a cent to my name. It was a pretty tough time in my life. I think I blamed everyone other than myself at the time, but upon reflection, geez, that's so wrong. The company failed because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I did the only thing I could. I licked my wounds, and I moved to Perth for a fresh start, which is where I am now. And I got an opportunity to manage a company there upon arriving in Perth. It was a plumbing company. And there was 2 plumbers and apprentice when I arrived, so just a small team. And then within just over 18 months, took them to a team of 14, right? So pretty rapid growth there. But it was then I was approached by 2 of the current team members to start a company called, at the time, they had an idea of calling it Plum Bros. I suppose the rest is history.
So with the original company that you first started out, what was that what made you dive into that first venture so early on?
The electrical company I was managing the plumbing division for, they were giving up a sizable contract, and it was predominantly plumbing. And I think that was part of the reason why they were giving it up. It wasn't their core business.
Yeah.
So I just saw opportunity, and I've got a history of that, and I just took it.
You were sort of, jump first, ask questions later sort of guy where it's like, seize on the opportunity and just go for it. We'll figure it out. It'll work out. We'll make it happen. That kind of mentality.
I was. I've had to rein that in a little bit. Our CFO will tell you I still am. She gets a little bit nervous when I go to a conference or a seminar or do some training or bits and pieces, but I've had to rein that in a little bit.
Infrastructure around you. And do you mind touching on, that first venture? What were some of the things that kind of stacked and went wrong, do you think?
I just, there was just so many things where I didn't know what I was doing. I actually remember PAYG was a big one, right? You grow a big team and you don't necessarily, if you don't understand that, you've got a problem ahead of you, right? Because that can just mount up so quickly. I had about one near the very end. I had close to 14 in the team, and that's a sizable PAYG weekly commitment.
Yeah.
And I actually remember this. This is how narrow-minded I was at the time. I remember arguing with my bookkeeper because I didn't know the numbers, but she did, and I remember just telling her she was wrong.
Yeah, right.
So, everything in hindsight, I was what, 24, 25 at that time. So you can't tell a 25-year-old bloke he's wrong, can you? But you just look at that now and you go, what a moron.
Yeah. But the valuable lessons learned, that prepares you for the next one. Obviously moving to Perth and things turning around very quickly, and you have a different approach to the new venture. That was Plum Bros or Plumbing Bros, it's invaluable, those harsh lessons sometimes.
100%. I own it now, right? I own it because it was the making of me personally. Without that, there is no Plumbing Bros. So, or there might be, but it wouldn't be what it is today. I can categorically guarantee that. So, I'm a big believer. Not everyone, but I'm a big believer in you almost have to fail to figure the right way forward, or be close to someone or something that has and learn with it.
To get the lesson without the scar, having the right people around you. But sometimes, you've just got to cop that unfortunate.
It would have been nice to not have the scar, but here we are.
Yeah. We'll move on from this, but just my last question on this matter, getting approached to start another plumbing company, was there any kind of hesitancy where you're thinking, shit, this didn't quite go right the first time? Did you think you were ready, or were you still at a point where it's like, you know what? No, I've learned from that. I can hit this with a bit more pace. I'm going to do it smarter. It'll work this time. Was there any of that battle in your mind?
It's a great question. I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it. I had two of my very close mates pushing me because they had different skill sets in their own right, but they knew they needed access to my business skill set to achieve our goals. But I knocked that back on 2 occasions over the space of a couple of months. But there was a minor pay dispute with the old company, and upon reflection, it was so minor it's not funny. But everything happens for a reason, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really interesting. So I guess launching Plumbing Bros, what was your focus early on? You're just starting out. You're trying to get established in the market. You're in Perth. What did you typically do to try and unlock that growth and get things going? Where was your focus?
So I think, make no mistake, Plumbing Bros Foundation's always been built on 5-star service, 5-star customer experience, 5-star service. We've got 5 stars on the front of our building. It sounds so simple, but geez, it's neglected in business, and especially trades businesses. But above that, I think we've always been one step ahead because we've taken a corporate approach to the trades industry. We've got a corporate onboarding program. I don't remember a plumbing company having anything like that in all my time. We're a systems-based, process-driven business. All our systems and processes are in a smartphone app on all our teams' mobile device. We call it the Plumbing Bros portal. Yeah. It's got not just written processes, it's got video instructions because everyone learns a little bit differently. We're constantly innovating, and we're constantly trying to change the perception of plumbing, right? You might have seen that pop up on our website. And things. Everywhere. What does that mean? I regularly refer to a study I read a few years ago, which blew my mind, and it was 4 of the top 5 most common traits in trades and plumbers in general. This was more focused on plumbers. Were all negative, and they're messy, smelly, dirty, late, overcharging, and I even remember seeing the plumber's crack in there somewhere, right? And it got me thinking. Plumbing is perceived as a lucrative industry, right? You always hear, if I had my time again, I'd be a plumber. Just the amount of times I've heard that. The overall perception is such a negative stereotype. So it's like, oh man, imagine we could clean this up. Imagine the possibilities.
Yeah, and I really like that, because again, you look at any of your marketing on your vans, like your massive office, where in Perth as well, just plastered everywhere, 5-star service. We're trying to change the perception of trades everywhere. What I like about that is because there are so many contractors, again, not even just plumbers, any trade, that are doing a great job, a really great job, but there also are, because it's such a low, like you mentioned, it's so easy to start a trades business. It's such a low barrier to entry that a lot of cowboys can get into the industry. And it takes away from the good that people are trying to do. So then you talk to any residential customer, this is just an easy example, talk to any person just across the dinner table about hey, do you know anyone that you could recommend for a plumbing, for example? They will jump at the chance to tell you about a negative experience with a plumber over a good one because it's just so common, which is unfortunate. So I always talk to people about, hey, like, I really like that you're talking about the 5-star service, because I talk about, in terms of growing your company, there's a million marketing strategies, a million sales tactics, hacks, and all this stuff that people get caught up in. That, yeah, you can generate more leads and you get more work in the door. But if you want to truly grow a great company for the long haul, customer experience. And it's something, it's free, one, but it's something so simple to implement in your business, where it's focused about how let's treat the customer with utmost respect. Let's make it about them. Let's show up when, honor the commitments that you make to them. Show up when you say you're going to show up. Like, these really fundamental basics should be what you start with, in my opinion.
100%. And, I feel like we do it really well, but it's ongoing. It never stops, right? And, I feel for our scheduling team is just always on the back foot from the second they answer the phone because of this perception. It's like, we're the bottom of the food chain. And it took me a few years to just acknowledge that. Actually, you try wrestle with it, you try fight it, but as soon as you just acknowledge it and do it the best possible way, you're going to get better results.
Yeah, I love that. So would you say that this is, that focus is what's allowed you guys to grow so quickly, and that's where your differentiation is? Like, obviously you've got the corporate approach where you've got the systems and training, and so, there's no excuse for anyone on your team to not know what to do, so then you can just focus on accountability. But would you say this focus is really the core of what's allowing you guys to pull ahead so quickly?
100%, especially from the earlier stages to the middle stages of our journey. It's not, we weren't reinventing the wheel. We're just doing the easy things right, but we're doing them consistently. Yes. Consistency is just critical.
Yep, I couldn't agree more, because that's another thing that I'm constantly trying to talk to people about. Moments of brilliance don't matter. It doesn't matter how good you are every now and then. You could be really average you can have average people, average execution, all this stuff, as long as you're consistent. Like, I'm constantly saying that, obviously try to be above average, but consistency wins every day of the week, in my opinion. So everyone
100%. And then it's actually one of our 5-star core values, but continuous improvement, right? Yeah. Don't just get content. Always continuously trying to improve yourself, your team, your customers' experience, and just I suppose it would be, optimizing your business permanently.
Yeah, there's always gaps to fill, always gaps, if you're looking for them too.
100%. The day you think you've made it and you're the best, then you may as well pack up shop.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So, you guys have just clocked 5 years in business. Is that right? 5 years?
Yeah, about 5.5 now. Yep.
5.5 years. So a lot's happened in that short time period. So for anyone listening, if you go to Plumbing Bros website, they've got a great timeline. We can see all the different milestones, but just trust me, a lot has happened in that short 5.5 year time period. But one of which is being the start of your new franchise business model. So at what point did the idea of franchising come about? What size were you at the time? And, really what led to that decision? Walk me through it all.
Yeah. So I think, I grew my Melbourne business quickly. It had its challenges and downfalls, which we spoke about, so we know that. But I can't deny the growth. And then I grew the Perth business I was managing pretty quickly again. And then with a much better grounding and a great team led by the founders with me as well, the co-founders, Plumbing Bros grew phenomenally fast. And so I sat back and I thought, I think I know what I'm doing here. But what I started to do was I went a little bit rogue, I'll call it, with a coaching and business development business for trades to just help them avoid the pain I went through, right? Okay. But then, I had a few clients in Queensland, in New South Wales, in Victoria. So it was starting to grow, it was starting to take off. But then I was in the shower and I had the light bulb moment, right? I seem to get a few light bulb moments in the shower. People make fun of that to me all the time. But I had the light bulb moment where it was to combine the passion of growing business and helping people, but do it under the PB brand. Yeah. But not just that, it was I want people to be able to own a plumbing business without being a plumber. Yeah. And the reason for that was because the skill set we were looking for, it didn't always exist in the plumbers themselves, right? Not everyone, but the majority of plumbers didn't have, and because they hadn't been trained in, they've been trained in plumbing, right? So they hadn't been trained in other areas. So they don't necessarily have the entrepreneurial mindset, the business management skills and experience, the people management, most importantly, skills and experience. So this all started in my head as a license agreement. But, once again, I'd gone from not knowing what I was doing in my Melbourne business to now I knew what I was doing, but I had no idea what I was doing in franchising. So I was introduced by a man by the name of John Brown. He's a franchising Hall of Famer. And he was a business consultant we worked with to set up our franchise model, and he still works with us today. He's had a massive impact on my personal journey and obviously our business as well.
Yeah. I really like that idea of, you started out going, hey, I want to help more people. Again, tying back into your overarching mission here, but then having that light bulb moment in the shower. I'm the same, where in the shower, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but that's when the good ideas hit you. But I like the idea of going from, hey, I'm going to teach people how to do this, to essentially go, I'm going to give you people still need to work, but I'm going to give you the systems. I'm going to give you the process. I'm going to help you get the lead generation going through, like that pivotal moment of, I'm going to, rather than teaching, I'm going to help you just build it underneath the one banner. That's so interesting. So, obviously you mentioned that going into franchising, completely new beast, and you've got some consultant help and you're pulling ahead now, but what have been some of the biggest challenges so far?
So I think, geez, we could talk about this all day, couldn't we? I think every business has challenges. That's a fact, right? Every business has challenges. But I think the biggest thing for me is your business's challenges are not the customer's problem. I'm going to repeat that. Your business's challenges are not your customer's problem. I see that too often. The best businesses for me are the ones from the outside looking in. They just look perfect, exceptional. And it's up to the business owners to control that narrative, right? I could talk about, challenges, right? We could talk about, we've overcome labor shortages. What business hasn't? We've overcome a global pandemic. Everyone did that as well. I feel for the cafes. They had to close their doors through COVID, and then guess what? They got to reopen. And now they've had to reduce days. This is all hospitality, by the way, not just cafes. They've had to reduce the number of days they open or hours they open. Most of them, I see it all the time, because they can't get staff now. So they've had a tough run. And then, I also think about builders. The builders are just in a mess of a world at the moment. And only the best ones will survive. So, I don't necessarily like talking about our challenges, because there's others having way bigger challenges out there. And I'd love to be able to help them more. But, to summarize that question, there's always going to be challenges in business. If it was easy, everyone would do it. And then I probably wouldn't, because I'd get bored.
Yep. I think that's very common amongst entrepreneurs, where, when things are going well, that's not what you're in it for. Like, you kind of get used to operating in a state of semi-organized chaos. And then when you don't have that, something doesn't quite feel right. So you almost go looking for trouble, so to speak. Or that's when, if things are going really well, you go looking for the next opportunity, because you go, no, I need something to get stuck into. That's so common.
Sounds like you know me well.
Yeah, but I really do like that. That's a massive lesson for everyone listening, that things are always going to be happening. Your world isn't going to be perfect. Never put that on your customers, because the last thing people want to hear, like what you're saying here, everybody has problems. The last thing they want is more of your problems. Like, it's not what they're hiring you to be there. Like, it's all about them. I really like that. But I guess moving on, mate, I wouldn't mind talking a little bit about, running a team and leadership, because being responsible for, over 100 people, that's no easy task, at least not for a lot of people. So, what have been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned growing Plumbing Bros and running a team?
Yeah, so I think I probably, just to give some advice here, so this might sound a bit brutal, I'm sorry. But to me, if you're not resilient and you don't have strong mental health, just don't do it.
Yeah.
Right? Just don't even bother doing it. And that's okay. That's not a problem. It's just don't get into the stresses of business, because you don't need to.
Yeah.
But if you do, then, some things, some advice, you put the work in, always remain hungry for the opportunity. And then if you've got a team, another thing I always talk about is just to be a leader, not a boss. And then another thing that jumps to mind would be, always focus on the work-life balance.
Yeah.
And then this other couple of things popping into my mind is positive thinking, right? That's another big one. If you're having a down day, unfortunately, you just have to hide it personally, because your personal problems can't become your customers or your team's problems. You just need to remember, there's consistent, there's that word again, almost like a brick wall, right?
Yeah.
It almost sounds a little bit negative, but it's just, in the position I've put myself in, that's just what I have to be. And there's many people out there that have that role as well. No matter what size of business, right? No matter what size of business, because that's gonna, if you're that person, then you're gonna set your business up for success a lot better. Also, one last thing there jumped to mind is stick to basics. Drinking water, eat healthy, and exercise. You do those three, you watch your mental health be 10 times better.
Yeah. One of my favorite sayings is, you can't manage people in the battle. It's got to be from a leadership perspective. What you're talking about is really interesting, where, 100 people, even 10 people, but 100 people, that's a lot of people. Everybody's going to have their own bad days and good days and different personalities, different challenges. You're talking across multiple states in the country. The biggest thing that I resonated from what you just said there was that you try to be as consistent as you possibly can with your character to your team, so that no matter what they've got going on, they know that when they speak with you, they know what they're going to get, and that they can rely on you, rather than you being so up and down and inconsistent. Like I see a lot of people, particularly running smaller crews where it might be 6 to 10 blokes, not blokes specifically, but team, let's say. And they don't have that mental fortitude, where they're so inconsistent with their character that their own team don't know who's going to rock up in the morning, what type of boss they're going to get that day. And you see the negative effect on morale, and then the negative effect that flow-on effect that goes to their customers. And it's such a big one. So you're talking about putting up that brick wall, so to speak, where, some people might say, oh, that can't be healthy for your mental health. But you're saying, no, on top of that, look after yourself, exercise, eat right,
Yeah, 100%. And as the business scales, so when you start out in business, right, you're going to wear a lot of hats yourself, probably all the hats. But then as you scale, you hand them over the different roles to different team members as you go. But just above all that is getting the right people on the bus is just super critical. But then even more critical to getting the right people on the bus is retaining the people on the bus.
Yeah, keeping them happy. And so walk me through, because a lot of people, like I know a few people running larger teams, just like yourself and everything, but I'd say, I hate to make broad assumptions here, but a lot of people that I talk to, they might try to scale further than, say, 12 employees, and they realize that gap in the growth, they go, this is where it's no longer becoming fun for me. It's becoming less of a tight-knit group for me, and the quality of our service is dropping. This is too much stress for me to handle. And they reduce back down to that 6 to 10 sort of range, breaking through the different plateaus. So going from, you and the two other founders to 10 employees to 20 to 30 to 40. Like, what have you had many challenges finding the right people, or at least even knowing what is the person that needs to fit in this role now, as we've grown to, say, 30 people and beyond?
Yeah, I think there's 100 different talking points to that. I think, we've tried different things. We didn't get it perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but, we're in a really good really good position now. But I think, we focused on promoting from within, and that had a really good benefits up until a certain stage, and then we sort of hit a roadblock there as well, because then it was a knowledge-based thing. We needed professional experience and ability in different key areas, such as our sales and marketing teams, or our compliance teams, and different areas of the business that just needed that higher level of ability that we didn't really have in the business at the time.
Yeah. And was that a challenge for you to identify those pinpoint moments where it's like, look, maybe we need to be looking outside of the business? Like, or did it come pretty quickly? Like, what was the realization like there?
Yeah, I think a lot of what we do is data driven, and then I've talked about systems and processes already. So it's about you want to maximize the efficiency out of every individual in the business, but it's just about closely managing and working with the people themselves individually to understanding what their capacity is in the role. And then you sort of freely scale from there when you're in a smaller business, because you've never been to those heights, so you don't necessarily know. But planning is critical. So whether it be planning just financially in a budget or business plan. I'm not really a fan of business planning.
40-page SWOT analysis.
Yeah, I don't like. The reason I don't like it is because I personally don't refer back to it. If you're going to refer back to it, it probably works. But I use things that I refer back to, where different milestones and goals, and definitely the financial planning, and then hundreds of different notes around the financial planning. But you put the plan in place, then you're going to be more consistent to the plan rather than just going on a free for all, trying different things and hoping it works.
Yeah, I really like that. And what's the evolution of your role been like? So obviously starting out, you would have been on the tools, working, doing the plumbing work, to now, like, what's your day, like, what's the contrast look like? Were there many different stages, and what's your day to day now? Where do you focus in the business?
Well, I think me personally, I think I used to have a lot of aggression in my management style, but geez, the world's changed a little bit, even in my short period of time. And aggression is not effective anymore. There's still a small place for it, maybe if something's gone really wrong, but not the old way I used to be. So I've had to evolve, be a lot calmer, a lot more level-headed. And yes, that could be hard at times, but it gets better results, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have any? I mean, we've touched on a few things here, but do you have any overarching advice to anyone, particularly growing and scaling and bringing on more staff, maybe at a rapid rate, where they might be very used to, say, a team of 6, and they're growing to, say, even doubling that to 12 or going to 15? Do you have any overarching advice to managing a big influx of more staff?
Yeah, definitely. Know your numbers. Know your numbers. So you can work as hard as you want, but if you don't know your numbers and then upskill yourself considerably along the way, you're going to risk losing everything, exactly like I did. And, just a couple of examples that jump into my head there is, if you employ people, did you know there's a 0.5% rise in superannuation year on year until it hits 12%? Did you know that? Right? Because a lot of small business owners don't know that.
I was actually talking to someone literally yesterday about that very point.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and so okay, now you know that. How do you plan to charge that? And then with we talked about PAYG that got me in a little bit of trouble. The first thing I did when we started Plumbing Bros is made sure we were okay. I'm not going to make that mistake again. So I'm running regular PAYG and BAS liability reports. So we're just on top of our tax debts, and I'm paying it weekly.
Yeah.
Instead of monthly or quarterly or whenever it was due at that point in time. I'm setting good standards early, but if that's not your area of expertise, it wasn't mine, right? Make sure you engage a company that can help. And it sounds like it could be yours, baby.
Absolutely. That's a small little plug for trade business accountants for everyone listening. We'll get you sorted, but yeah, that's a massive one, because a big one that I see is people spending the government's money, not realizing that tax is always, people get caught up in tax loopholes and all this kind of stuff, where it's like they fix that on the wrong side of the equation. Hey, pay the tax and keep more money rather than just blowing it all or spending it and then not having money to actually pay it back and get yourself on the treadmill there, the debt treadmill. But just understanding that tax is always going to be a part of business. You must plan for it and incorporate that in your financials.
Definitely. Something jumped out there when you said spending the government's money as well is the stimulus had an interesting impact on business as well, didn't it? Because sometimes, it helped a lot of businesses, to make no mistake, it helped a lot of businesses that really needed it. But it also topped up a few businesses that didn't need it. And I've spoken to a lot of people that happened to, and it almost gave them a false sense of security. So if you didn't know your numbers correctly, and if you just put that to the bottom line and you got a bit ahead of yourself thinking you're doing better than what you actually were, you could find yourself in a bit of a pickle as well.
Yeah, I've seen a few businesses back ends where, decent sized companies, 1.1 to $1.5 million companies are growing, putting on more and more people, but you dig into the financials, they don't even understand their gross profit margin. I'm thinking, mate, this is the engine room of your business. This fuels everything. Then you look at the bloated overheads. Then you're looking at, okay, you barely broke even just from government stimulus. It's like, we've got to make some dramatic changes here, but they just have no idea. And that's the biggest pet peeve of mine is, I know there's a bit of a what comes first in terms of hiring people. Like, do you get the work, then you get the team, or do you get the team, then you get the work? Either, whatever you think you're capable of doing, but not understanding where you're at financially before you bring on staff is just insanity, you know?
Yeah, and if I had to put a percentage on it, and once again, I'm not being negative here, it's reality. I speak with people every day. I'm going to say 90% of trades business owners, they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, I agree.
And that is alarming. It's very alarming.
Yeah, and that's the challenges too, because when you don't have clarity of your numbers, so to speak, right, you just think, I need to be as busy as possible because that's going to generate as much money as possible. But oftentimes, like I'd say 60% of the time when we work with a company, volume is detrimental to their cash. So the more work they bring on, the more danger and risk they are of losing literally everything, which is crazy to some people to comprehend, where it's like, what do you mean? I'm getting more sales, but I'm making less money, or I've grown my team and now I'm not making any money. I made more as a sole trader. Like, you need to understand this.
And another one you see a lot is you could have a lot of cash in the bank. It doesn't mean your business is profitable.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see that in trades business owners a lot as well.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And this kind of ties into, the next thing I wanted to ask you, James, but, we've spoken about, there's a lot going on in the world right now. There's a lot going on in the industry right now between, the labor shortages and material supply issues and just everything going on around us. But, outside of the financials, maybe, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see other trade business owners making right now?
So just, we've touched on it, but I'll just reiterate it one last time there, is not knowing the numbers. Every business needs to be driven by data. So if a business owner can't tell me or you or anyone that needs to know at the time their gross profit margin, which you mentioned, but then things like, their average sale, the percentage of product or material or labor to their overall revenue, just the key efficiency drivers there, or obviously the weekly net profit. Guess what? If you can't answer those basic questions, you own a job, you don't own a business.
Yeah.
But it's not too late to get help. Seek advice from professionals, as we just said before. Our business here, Circle of Professionals, is just integral. Consultants, bookkeeping, accounting, sales, marketing. Geez, I could go on all day. And then, if you don't understand, ask questions. Knowledge is power. And, whether you're reading a book or you're attending seminars, conferences, whatever it might be, just continue to invest in yourself and upskill yourself.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. And even from the numbers perspective, because I know not everyone loves numbers. Like, I'm an accountant by trade. I don't even think I love numbers naturally that much, But it can be a bit daunting, even like larger businesses where it's easier to just not, neglect it, put your head in the sand, so to speak. But just, again, if it's not you, someone else has to be doing it. Just get in someone that enjoys it, is good at it, can give you the data for you to make better informed business decisions. You don't have to be sitting there crunching numbers. Get it delivered to you on a silver platter so you can go, that's where I'm at. Oh, well, if I go do this now based off that information, we can do even better.
Yeah. And as long as you understand the numbers you're given, and if you don't, ask.
I see a lot of people
ask the same question 5 million times until you do understand.
Yeah, because I've seen so many companies, and this is the biggest shame to me, is really hardworking business owners where they've got amazing marketing, they do an exceptional job for their customers, everything going for them, more than a lot of companies have. But because they don't understand their financials, they don't understand their pricing strategy, or how they should be really doing, they're going backwards, or they're not making any money at all, or so that they might be surviving on below fair market wage of 60 grand a year, supporting a family, which is just not enough, especially as a business owner. Whereas if you get clear on the stuff, it's particularly with the wins you can have in pricing, backed up with amazing marketing, actually doing a great service and all these different things that matter, but you can turn around a company in like 5 weeks. Like, you can really turn around very quickly.
That's what I was helping businesses do there for a bit, and now that's what I help our franchise partners with. I love that. We could talk about this all day.
So with your franchisees, what are some of the biggest challenges that they like? Where do you find you're helping them with the most? Like, what's the future looking like for Plumbing Bros at the moment?
So to start with the franchisee, we call them franchise partners. I think it's an interesting one because you think you've got a near perfect business model, right? And, it's never perfect because of what I said earlier, but near perfect. But then a global pandemic hits, and whilst plumbing, luckily, we're just a stroke of luck, we're an essential service, and we're able to keep operating. And in some cases, we actually had more work than ever before. From a franchisor level, we've got aggressive national growth plans, but we can't train our team in person here in Perth. We can't visit them for the commencement of their business and be with them to help guide them. So we've had to evolve and learn to do things just like this on Teams or Zoom or different digital platforms like that. So it's been really interesting, but it's only made us better. So I think people coming into our network now are in such a good position. But I'm not going to give our franchising a plug. But in terms of future of Plumbing Bros, what does that look like? So we're expanding our sales and marketing team. I feel like we changed the landscape of the plumbing industry with our sales, because we were one of the first, and I was stand to be corrected because I don't know every single business in Australia, but we were definitely one of the first to have full-time business development managers, sales teams promoting plumbing sales to other businesses, right? So trying to get plumbing services to other businesses. And it was brilliant. It produced millions and millions of dollars of sales.
Is that to commercial property managers, or what type of B2B?
100%, yeah, 100%. It would insurance builders, property managers, commercial property managers, business to business opportunities. You name it, we would chase it, right? So real success. But the world changed, but it's just another change that happens, right? You don't need a global pandemic for things to change. There might be a financial downturn or recession. Things happen, right? So we've had to alter that a little bit because most people don't want door-to-door sales. They're more than that, we'll call them that. They don't want people knocking on their door trying to sell them stuff anymore because the world's changed. So we're looking at different things. We're building a digital sales and marketing team, which we're really excited about. We're exploring some things in logistics. I won't go into too much detail there, but we're excited about that. But we're more excited about our network growth. So, we're going to be servicing every state and territory in Australia by the end of the financial year. So, that'll be 3 years in franchising. That's pretty phenomenal growth. So we're really excited about that. But also network optimization, ensuring our franchise partners are running as efficient and profitable as possible. And then that's permanently ongoing. So, we get really excited about that. And overall, feel like we're just getting warmed up still. So, future's a bit scary.
I love it. Because again, 5.5 years, just exceptional growth, and then breaking into the franchise model, then going from that, and then what you've had to go through with the pandemic, like, mate, you picked a terrible time to start.
Thanks.
But that's fantastic. And in terms of, because again, we're an accounting firm or coaching an accounting firm, but, from the numbers perspective, with your franchise partners, are you helping them manage their finances and making sure that they've got the right pricing strategy, and make sure that they're monitoring key KPIs and whatnot, and bookkeeping's being handled, all that kind of stuff? Is that a part of the deal, so to speak?
100%. So I don't speak about other businesses at all, but I hear things. We've had some really talented franchise executives come through our business, and the common theme is that our support is just on a whole new level compared to other franchise networks. So that's helping them with everything, not just the numbers, helping them with absolutely everything. We'll continue to do that. That's our commitment to them.
That's fantastic. So pretty much across the board, any problem or challenge, get in touch. We're going to get this solved. Is that
100%? And it's funny. I was talking to someone. I was talking to our CFO who popped in my office just before this podcast here, and there's a franchise partner at the moment who is keeping problems to themselves a little bit because they don't want to annoy us.
Yeah.
So, but now it's about just educating them. Hey, there's no question is a dumb question. Well, there's some dumb questions, but you know what I mean? No question's a dumb question if you don't understand it.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you don't understand it, maybe we're not explaining it properly. So let's try a different angle because you know, that's our commitment to you, and we're going to make sure you understand all the different metrics. Our business is a super complicated business. It's a plumbing business, but for some reason, somewhere along the way, we made it probably a little bit too complex. We went to the top of the mountain of complexity, and now everything we do is we're trying to simplify it. But hey, we're in a pretty good position. So I think we're doing something right, but very process driven, very systemized. And, you know, it's almost like there's so many systems, you're not going to remember them all 100% of the time. So you're going to make little mistakes here and there. But it's our role to pick those up and not jump down your throat. It's about guiding you and supporting you, training, educating. And, you know, we've all got a common goal at the end, and that's to have a business that's as efficient and profitable as possible.
Yeah. And, you know, not everyone listening is going to be running a franchise model. Probably a lot of people aren't so, but I think that lesson translates perfectly to any business owner listening as well, where, hey, the success of your company is dependent on the success of your customers, right? So the same thing goes where it's like spend the time to explain what's going on, you know, look out for them. What do they want? It's not about you, you know, just service them as best as possible, and that'll allow you to grow. Really, really important, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And then, you know, on that as well. So from a sales standpoint, right, if you do that right, you don't always have to focus on generating new business.
Yeah.
Make sure you're regularly communicating with your existing clients, because I believe there's far greater return on investment once you wow a customer and then you retain them for life.
Yeah, a lot of people get caught in that trap of new leads, and they just forget what they're already sitting on. They've got a gold mine of opportunity of great customers, loyal customers, or, you know, customers with the chance or opportunity to make them loyal raving fans if they just remember that they exist. You know?
Yeah, definitely. You know, another piece of advice: make your business available to say yes more often.
Yeah, I love that.
I can't stand ringing a business at 3 p.m. and, you know, told they're not open, or the phone's off, or they don't call you back, or this, that, and the other, right? Don't make it hard for people to buy from you. Otherwise, they're just going to call the next business.
Yeah, I think, you know, speed is everything in business, in my opinion, because, you know, I think even, you know, speed beats free even, because if you've got, you know, free hot dog stand, you've got 1,000 people saying they get free hot dog, I'll go pay $50 to get one at the next stand if I can get it right now, you know? So in terms of like, I talk to people all the time, just, you know, whether it's in business or personal life, and, you know, the standard, oh, you know, I got a few quotes but 4 of them didn't get back to me.
Yeah.
So I went with the 5th one. It's like, what?
Yeah.
That's the reason why people miss out on work, because they just didn't get back to you. They didn't answer the phone. They didn't call back. They didn't send a quote through like they said they were going to do. It's like, man, there's so much opportunity to grow your business if you just focus on the simple things. Like,
so one of the foundational processes that you know, just drove work into our business was around speed, turnaround times, right? So make sure your business has documented turnaround times, and, you know, it might be, so you receive a work order, right? And we're going to make contact with that work order no longer than 24 hours, right? And hopefully sooner, but you're going to put a time limit on it. It's 24 hours. And then guess what? Once we make contact with that work order supervisor, whoever it may be, we're going to attend within 48 hours. Right? So they're our fundamentals, but, you know, every business is a little bit different. Make sure you've got them documented, because then, you know, amongst a lot of other processes, but you start to become scalable because you've got your fundamentals and your foundation right.
Yeah, I love that too, because, you know, we live in a day and age where everything's so easily accessible. You know, look at things like Netflix compared to going down the road and having to rent a movie and all that kind of stuff. We can just pull up on your laptop within seconds. Obviously, you can't always do that with a trades business, but the more you can, even if things do take, say, 14 days or a month turnaround with projects or whatever you're doing, proactive communication so that people feel like things are being done, or they get the reassurance that things are being handled. Like, hey, we're at step 2, like we spoke about. Just wanted to give you a quick update. Here's the photos of the progression. Like that kind of commitment to communication makes all the difference in people, rather than just going, okay, I've hired them, I haven't heard from them, and then they rock up unannounced 2 weeks from the first conversation that we had.
100%. That's just so common in trades, isn't it? Where, it's not hard to, you receive, if a business or a person or someone wants to spend money with your business, then it's not hard to, if they've emailed you or however they've communicated with you to send you a job or a sale, just to communicate back and thank you. Hey, we're onto it, or we're going to attend within 24 hours, or we're going to attend at 3 p.m. tomorrow, or, just basic communication 101, isn't it?
Yeah. And what I like about your commitment to sort of the system side of thing is, I think a big part of why people struggle to do that is because they're just operating in chaos. They don't know where they're at with so many different things, and they're dropping all these balls everywhere because they haven't got any kind of fundamental structure as to how the company's really run. It's all up in here in the head, or spread across a million whiteboards, and things get lost, or, the paper job folders just scattered throughout the office, and they just drop the ball naturally because it's too much to remember.
Yeah, definitely. So then you look at, we've talked about personal upskilling. Look at upskilling your own productivity, right? There's so much literature out there to upskill productivity that, you've just got to invest in yourself. If that's somewhere where you fall down, invest in yourself and fix it.
Yeah, because a lot of people create busyness, I reckon. Focus on things that don't really matter because they don't know what they should be doing, so they just fill their time with anything.
100%. I'll go back to the very beginning. We're talking about it's just so easy to start a business, right? It's just so easy to open a company, and people just do it a little bit prematurely. So it's about getting the knowledge base right first, getting all your ducks in a row, and then opening the business and learning the hard way from there.
Yeah, absolutely. James, I've got two more questions. The second last one I wouldn't mind asking is, do you have any advice? Because again, a big portion of your growth has been that B2B sales process. Obviously, you've hired experts to help do that. But do you have any advice to anyone listening around maybe approaching other companies and trying to pull that off, so to speak?
Sorry, what do you mean by approaching other companies?
If say you've got a residential, you've got a service-based plumbing business, and they're going, hey, I wouldn't mind getting some property managers, for example. A lot of people just cold call the office, or they drop in a business card, which gets thrown in the bin. Do you have any sort of advice on maybe how to tackle that a little bit better?
Yeah, actually, it's a really good question. So what we did, which worked, was we had a 100+ paid product and services guide, right? Now, it did cost a fortune to build and print, and geez, it took some time. But it was, if we talk about, we would target property managers, for example, right? And this product and services catalog, which by the time it went to print, it's $5 a book to print. But if you times that by a significant amount of printing, it costs a bit. But we had instances where it would sit on at a real estate or property manager's desk for over 12 months. And then they would call us and say, hey, I've got this on our desk at the office, and we need someone urgently. Can you help? And then when that opportunity arises, you just grab it, and we can get there.
That's fantastic.
So not everyone is going to be able to do that, especially we couldn't in our first months of operating because it's a costly exercise. So just one other thing I had there is that sprung to mind was just networking, right? If you're a small business, right, you might just be opening up, or you're starting to kick things off, or really any small business, to be honest. You just got to be networking. And it's it might be a business networking group, it might be a local chamber of commerce, it might be a local council group. There's so many different networking forums, but also it could just be. It could, and I'm contradicting myself here because I talked about walking in off the street, but if you just go and visit local businesses, engage with them, find out their needs, and just see if there's any synergy, see if there's any strategic partnerships that could be built from that, and you'll see an influx of jobs from that. And you know what, if you don't see a job from it, then guess what? You've just met someone in your local community, and it's a win regardless, right?
Yeah, and there's no knowing when the benefit or the reward from that activity will come back. Like you said, sitting on the desk for 12 months, you could have easily written them off, and maybe you did, but you got, that one didn't work out so well. But then, that lag effect kicks in. And I really like what you said about trying to understand what their problems are, what they need, because there's a big difference between I'm going to go try and build a new relationship with someone and make it all about them and establish how can I help you, as opposed to, hey, I'm a plumber, can you give me any work?
Yeah.
It's a massive difference, because why would they care about you if they don't know who you are? Build the relationship first. So that advice on networking, I'm always telling people that your personal network is your biggest asset in business.
Yeah.
The high quality, not even necessarily the larger the network, but the high quality of the network, the greater opportunities are going to fall in your lap, or fall in your lap, so to speak,
Yeah, unless you can solve their pain point, then they're not going to care about you. And then it's not a negative thing. It's just there's that many businesses out there, and there's that much sales activity that you've got to be able to differentiate yourself. So to do that, you've definitely got to understand their needs and wants, and that differs from company to company, to industry. So there's not a one size fits all trick. You've got to be adaptable, and then your business has got to be adaptable to their needs once you do get the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fantastic advice. But to close out here, James, I've got one final question. What advice would you give to any trade business owner, listening right now, who's working hard, they're chasing ambitious goals, they're wanting to do better? Maybe it's a mindset thing or it's a general business thing, but what general advice would you give to those sort of people listening right now?
Yeah, I think we're just going to keep going back to that, and it's not a bad thing, because we need to keep going back to it. It's about knowing their numbers, right? So, it's almost like, okay, if you haven't gone into business yet, then upskill yourself prior to going into business. Make sure you're ready, right? If you are in business, then make sure you know your numbers, right? If you're not in trades, right? If you're not using a job management software that integrates with an accounting software, then you need to fix that yesterday. Right? You need to fix that yesterday, and you need to have a suitable management software that can give you the numbers, right? And then, as we said before as well, is something can spit out numbers at you, whether it's a person or a software. You've got to understand the numbers. If you don't understand the numbers, ask questions, right? There's so many people out there, whether it's paid or just, networking, that are going to be more than happy to give their time because they're passionate about these things. So, knowledge is power. I think I said that again. Just consume as much knowledge and literature and upskill yourself, and your business will be better for it. Yeah.
I love it. That's fantastic advice. And just to add a little note on the end of that as well, is making sure that, you've got the job management software integrated, say with Xero or whatever, and everything's being handled properly and you're getting fed the numbers, but actually use them, base business decisions off it. Sometimes you might want to do something really badly. It might be buy a piece of equipment or bring on someone or whatever it be, or even tackle a job where it might have, I worked with a client once where I had an opportunity to quote, it was a $500,000 renovation on a heritage listed building. He was going to be able to do it at 50% gross profit margin, which would have been a fantastic project to tackle at the time, but he just didn't have enough cash, where it was too big of a risk, where it's like, if anything goes wrong, it could sink you. This one job could undo all of your hard work in business. So it's, have the financials, but like you're saying, get the experts to tell you what it means so that you can actually use that to guide the decision making, rather than, okay, yeah, I'm looking at them, but I'm still going to go and do what I want to do. There's a bit of a balance that you need to find.
100%. And so job management software, if there's anyone out there listening that doesn't currently have one, right, and they're looking at one, make sure it will give you the job profitability per job. Yeah. Right, per job, because then you can get overall reporting elsewhere if you have to. Your per job reporting is critical, and to get your per job reporting, you've got to have your cost base correct, right? So if your labor rates and then your on costs for the labor rates need to be input, the data needs to be accurate. Then your material cost needs to come from somewhere, whether it's an automated importing process or a price file or something. Then it's so simple once you understand it. Then you get your profitability at the other end, right? And then you can see who your most valuable customers, clients, work types, lead sources, that all is. And then you can optimize your business and you can approach more of that work because, for example, if it's something low margin with high risk, right? I don't want to throw builders in at the moment, but unfortunately that landscape is difficult at the moment. So, you got to sit back and go, well, is that smart, right? And that's what it's probably what you're referring to there about a big project that could sink a business in one hit. Now, you just can't have that, right? You're putting your own livelihood and your family's livelihood on the line every time you go to work, and that's not why people go into business.
Yeah, it's that risk versus reward and opportunity management. My dad always hammers this point. He always says, there's no bad projects. It's about finding a project that's best suited to you. Sometimes saying no is the best thing you can do. And it stems really like from what you're saying, is knowing the numbers involved with your current situation and the project, and thinking worst case scenario, what could happen, And that job costing. Oh,
it's really hard to say no to opportunity, isn't it?
Oh.
So you just have to understand the opportunity.
That's 100% true. And with the job costing, it's such a simple concept, but I don't know why, but a lot of people just don't do it. Like even one of our plumbing clients, first thing we started doing was going through the financials and going through what's your pricing strategy, what's it looking like, what's your profit situation. And we started, I think we back costed maybe 20 jobs just to start with. And there was such inconsistency with how he was pricing, where it was 17% margin, like gross. And then it was 45%, then it was 23, then it was 50, and it just fluctuated all over the place. Then with a month, it never dropped below 50. And then the average is 55, and it even sits up to 60% now. Purely because, and it's not ripping people off, he should have been pricing that, but he just didn't know what he was making on his jobs.
Yeah. Here's a good one for you as well. If you've got a team, right, and it could be a team of 1, it could be a team of 51, right? If you track the job profitability, if you've got 51, you should be tracking the job profitability. But if you have a high labor percentage to overall revenue, right? So we've talked about that earlier, where we want to track our materials and most notably our labor percentage to overall revenue. If that is high, that's an efficiency thing. And then I can tell you what, it can only be one of 2 things. It can be job profitability, right? Which you will know and understand through your job management software, or it's non-billable time.
Yeah.
And non-billable time, I'm going straight to the timesheets, which is in my job management software, right? Because that's going to tell me where the time's gone.
Yeah.
So basic, but just there's a good takeaway for you.
That is probably, I'm gonna label that as the most valuable piece of advice on this entire podcast, is exactly what you just said there, because it's so important. It's such an easy fix if you know where to look.
Yes, and that's the thing. But most people don't know where to look, don't understand it. We've talked about that so much, haven't we? But hopefully they're engaging, companies like yours there, because you guys definitely know what you're talking about and can help. That's for
Absolutely.
Sure.
Well, James, look, mate, I want to thank you for coming on the show this morning. It's been, an absolute pleasure having you on and hearing your story. And I know a lot of people are going to get a lot of value from listening to sort of your lessons, hard-won lessons, and your piece of advices. And I think what you're, looking to do with, what you have done with Plumbing Bros, one, is incredibly impressive, regardless, but given the time that you've done it in is exceptional. And then the external circumstances that you've done it through. But what you've got on the books and what you're looking to do with it is pretty exciting stuff. I want to ask one final question. Sorry, I just popped in my head. I'll have to ask. Do you have a grand vision here of how big is this thing going to go? Is that something you think about? Or is it more so, are you just focusing on how I just want to do a great job and whatever happens, happens?
Well, it would be negligent of me to say there's no plan. There is a pretty clear 5-year plan, which I won't divulge all of it. But there's in terms of franchising, we've got multiple entities which got their own planning. But in terms of franchising, there's 74 territories, right? And there's currently 10 of them taken. So there's room for growth. Some of those territories are in incredibly rural areas, so I'm not sure we'll ever fill them. But hey, we've got a great team in Wagga Wagga, which is surprising. So there's room for this business model anywhere in Australia. So that says enough, right? There's opportunity there, and over the next 5 years, we plan to fill it, but only if it's as efficient and profitable as possible.
That's fantastic. Well, James, thanks again for coming on. Have you got any final thoughts or words that you want to say, or?
Not really. I think we've dug into a fair few things here. So this has been a really great experience. I appreciate you having me. And hopefully the listeners have been able to get something out of it. And if there's any doubt whatsoever, they should be engaging your great services.
Absolutely. Definitely. All right. Well, thanks again for coming on, James.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you.